There we go.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Powerbombshells. This is episode 7. We are two broads chatting about wrestling. You probably, if you saw the live stream, you chatted with us for a very long time last week. So we appreciate you for coming to sit with us for 2.5 hours. And if you checked us out during the week or whenever, we appreciate that too. And thank you just in general for just keeping up with Fight Game Media. Last week we had a ton of coverage all week long for everything Mania related and things not Mania related. So we appreciate you tuning in and checking us out, and we hope that you enjoyed it. And maybe this might be something that we keep doing. So hopefully, if let us know if you liked it and if you like that kind of coverage and what type of coverage you'd like to see from us and from Fight Game Media, because we definitely love your feedback and want to incorporate that in for sure.
Definitely. I'm just really glad that we even got to do like a wrap up thing. That was a lot of fun. And
yeah, so I didn't get to hop on that. How did that go?
that was a lot of fun. So Grandpa Des, Paul Fontaine, who is a cool dude, and I'm glad I got to meet him. And he volunteered his show to kind of do a wrap up with some of the hosts of Fight Game Media of like what was our experience, and it was fun that it was his show because he was there,
right?
Really there,
right?
So, and he got to meet a lot of WWE superstars with his family and his daughter, who had a fantastic time.
Yeah, I saw some pictures that he tweeted, and they looked awesome.
It was really cool because a lot of us were following him, and so it was like I think it was Kevin Ely of the Boom who suggested, he was like, I really think it would be cool if we got a chance to hear from everybody, and especially Paul, and
definitely.
And then James from the Boom, James McDaniel, he was able to be on the stream, which was a ton of fun. And so we all got together. So it was Scott Young from The Rap with Keela Cash. It was James McDaniel from The Boom. And it was myself from here. And it was Grandpa Des himself. And Grandpa Des, being a cool, awesome grandpa, surprised the crap out of me with something that I was like, I've got to tell Sam about this, but I've been sitting on this. So he got a guest for the first about 30 minutes, and that guest was Mr. Filthy Tom Lawler.
What?
I know, my God. I wish you could have just like, I'm just sitting there, and what you're going to get from this is like, you get some bonus content here, is you get what Mel was thinking on the inside, because she couldn't freaking lose her mind.
Oh my God. I wanted to be on there anyway, but
No, but you had lots of good reasons. And how do you know? I mean, how
no, and there's no way to know that, but now
know that you're gonna get and Paul,
well, that just means we have to get Filthy Tom has to come on our show.
That's what I said. I
that's all that means. So we gotta make that happen. And he has to be in the jorts, and he has to wear the vest. Even though it reminds me, I meant to send you the tweet this morning. Last night I saw he was at a Clippers game, and he was like it was almost like a onesie. It was a denim onesie with a white t-shirt underneath it. I'll have to send you the tweet. I was like, this is not as good as the jorts, but this is pretty fantastic.
You will really enjoy the watch back, because
I have got to make sure I get on that. Hopefully maybe I'll get a chance to check that out today.
And we will go ahead and pop that up on our feed, which is right here. We go right here on our Twitter. Yeah. And we will go ahead and do that. And I am just so grateful to Paul. I don't know if there was some behind the scenes, Mr. Gigi maybe telling him that we were really into that or whatever, and I didn't even care. Because at one point he even said that surprise was for Mel, and that felt really cool. And
that's wonderful.
But let me tell you, it was a whole lot of, there were two things happening. It was, one of my friends he says it all the time, just be cool. Just be cool. People just need to learn to be cool. So there were two voices in my head. One was the Be Cool voice, and one was Dave Meltzer from, I can't remember. It's been fairly recently, though. It was about the last 6 months, where he was trying to, don't be a mark. anyway,
Yeah.
so, but it wasn't only how gracious Tom was with his time, it was how much fun stuff we got to talk about. And I'm not going to blow it for you because there's some fun talk in that. And the rest of the conversation was great too, because it was a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah.
And
which is the really cool thing of having so many different hosts and people involved in shows, is you get to see how others view wrestling or view even the same thing that you're watching.
Well, and that was, I mean, we had a lot of stuff like that. We had, James and I think are the only ones that watched anywhere near. And I mean, again, shout out to you for watching all of that stuff and like getting me involved in it in the first place. But it's like some people were there. But although, again, I think a lot of people, there's great stuff there. Go check it out.
Yeah, I really want. Yeah, and you guys check it out too.
And he's living on the Fight Game Media. This is living on the Fight Game Media YouTube, which is where we are exclusive place of. So
after you watch this episode, go watch that.
Yes, definitely. It's a lot of fun, and it was. I hope that people enjoyed our coverage, because I enjoyed covering it and the things that I learned and doing the spaces and getting to know the other hosts who I actually listened to.
Right.
I really enjoyed that.
I did too. So even if we do it like on a smaller scale, because obviously Mania Week is its own beast by itself, but even if we were to do like a Double or Nothing weekend, or if it was like even SummerSlam or, something, even I think on a smaller scale, I think would be a lot of fun too. Like apparently next weekend is the show there's so many shows next Saturday. It's like, where is this coming from?
Oh, we should we'll talk about that as we go along.
Yeah.
Because we're going to do some New Japan catch up. But we might do something for that. And we might do it once a month. I mean, again, if people feel like, hey, we love it so much, you must do it, just tell us. If not, I mean, I think we'll start doing it once in a while because it's fun. And I think
it's something different to kind of changes things up too, and lets us get to things in a little bit more real time than, I mean, we're weekly, and so we can still keep up pretty well, but sometimes reacting in real time, we did our spaces after Revolution, and so we got immediate reaction from the two of us and with Keela, so that was a lot of fun. So even if we do some Twitter spaces, if you guys are into that, we can do more of those too. So definitely let us know like what it is that you like, and we can try to incorporate that in. And I mean, just what Sam said and all that stuff, we'll put all that stuff up on here, and I'm going to leave that up for a little while because we're going to be talking about some things. And so cool. So much fun. Some great answers. A lot of fun. So and it's cool to get a first person perspective of somebody who was actually there. And he was at a couple of things, right? Because I know he was at he was at Super Card of Honor too, I know. So I'm sure he has lots of cool things that he got to see while he was there.
Yeah, and he got to talk about that as well. So that'll really.
I'm really looking forward to check that out. So you guys, like I said, check that out too. And we'll tweet it, because we try to tweet everything that's going on in Fight Game Media, just so, because there's so much happening all the time that, if you're on the Powerbombshells Twitter, then we generally retweet all the stuff that they're doing so that you can, you can check that stuff out too, because they put a lot of hard work into what they're doing. And so we want to make sure that they're getting eyes and ears on what they're doing.
And I enjoy their stuff too. So
definitely.
I'm partially here because I was listening to everybody, and they're so much fun.
Right.
Lots of fun. Yay. Let's get going here. We have got, what do we got stuff? So we got to make sure.
Well, I think we're bringing back a Gigi favorite segment for this one. So we're going to do another get to know you question. And it's funny because I had already been kind of thinking about this question. And then I was on David's podcast, How I Caught the Wrestling Bug, which I think is a fantastic idea for a podcast. I think I don't know why nobody has done that before, at least that I know of. I think it's just a really cool topic, and you get to just nerd out on how you got into wrestling and things like that. And so Mel was a guest previously, and so I listened to her episode and I heard the question, and I was like, hey, that's the question I had been thinking of doing for our segment. And then I got asked the question. That's funny because he asked me and I only got to talk about a couple of the things. So I was like, well, it's a good thing that Mel and I are doing it on our show because then we can go a little bit more in depth with it.
A little crossover. It's okay.
Yes.
There's lots of crossover episodes for things all
and
the
we did,
time.
and I if you are following on Twitter, I did tweet the links to both of our episodes a couple of days ago. I tweeted it's on, I think it's like rss.com, but I also went to Spotify and got the direct link for people who listen there, and so we can always just go back and bump that again so that you guys can see it. And definitely check out the episodes because they're fun.
And that is on the free that's the free Fight Game Media stuff. Like that is the free feed. You can go listen to David's podcast right on the free feed. It's a great way to get to know someone. I mean, there's a bunch of the hosts on here and
right. Yeah, it's really cool. So definitely. So I guess I'll ask you first. So the question that I came up with that David also asked is have you been to a pay-per-view? Which ones have you been to? What was your favorite?
So for me, I have been to 2 WrestleManias and it's so weird how they happen. I know, like I'll give a little side, whatever. But I've been to 2 WrestleManias, and then my absolute favorite pay-per-view that I've been to, which technically was a pay-per-view, was the ROH New Japan Supercard that went on.
And that's so crazy because I was supposed to be at that. And so we would have been at the same building and not even known it.
So many people I know now.
Yeah.
That is actually funny and true for. And I think that that's kind of one of those weird things is that, but one of these days we'll all be at a thing where we'll get to. So it's like, and that's something fun to look forward to.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness gracious, was that a great show like that? But how do you not like, it's WrestleMania.
Right.
And my WrestleMania in Seattle, which was sort of I don't want to say bigger one. I mean, there was a Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey three-way main event at the WrestleMania I went to in New York. That version of Daniel Bryan was one that I enjoyed a great deal. The fickle gimmick, probably around here, certainly for me, one of my all-time favorite belts.
Oh, I love that belt. It's great. It's just the embodiment of that character.
I love that belt.
I did too.
I would not run out and buy many belts in my life. That's not really my jam.
No, me either.
Dude,
that one. Yeah. Yeah, if I'm gonna own a belt, it would probably be that one.
Just the detail he went to with the vegan weaving of thread.
Yes, and I really enjoyed it because he included like crystals in it. So he had like turquoise and I think it was like howlite or something in it. And I was like, this is like right up my alley. I was like, this is great.
So great. And Kofi Kingston won that one, and that was a fun day.
Oh, yeah.
And it felt really good. And I was there with a friend who had never been and was in from out of country, so
that's an even
it was like world class. It was so much fun. We were, I mean, we had we had the nosebleed seats, but it didn't matter because the place was fine. Right. And we had so much fun, like during sort of downtimes, just like making fun, making jokes, making cracks about Giant Baba. And then, I mean, that's where we got to because we were so tired after that week.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I think one of the best things too is that because his mom is a giant Bret Hart fan, because who kind of isn't? I mean, really, but he told her that he was going to go to WrestleMania, and she was like, "Well, is Bret Hart going to be there?" And he was like, "No, Mom, it's 2019." But it just so happened that he made an appearance at WrestleMania that year.
Perfect.
So it was I will never forget how much we laughed when his music
God,
hit,
that's great.
because back in the day she just had a big old crush on him and it was just so much fun. And like how I don't think that's toppable. I mean, it's just too much fun. So, I mean, it's that was probably my number one. And then, the indie ones, like the Detroit show for Progressive was definitely a pay-per-view for people. And
I can imagine that it was.
That was hilarious. I want to actually, those are things that I wanted to pop on there. And the only reason I mentioned that is that I think you and I need to take pictures of our venues for each other, because I think you would think that mine was hilarious. That could be a getting to know, because my venue is a Knights of Columbus Hall, and it's on like laminate floor, but there is a ginormous like chandelier that essentially hangs over the middle of the ring. And I just think that you would appreciate.
I would.
And I was like, because it got me thinking. So that's maybe something coming up. Maybe we'll even put them up. That might be good.
That's a cool thing to do. And I wish there was my local promotion. One of the things they were doing was these pure shows where they were featuring up and comers, and it was like in this tiny little. It was called Hebron Hall, and it was this tiny little room that held maybe 200 people, if that. And we were like on top of each other, but they had to apparently the people who rented the building, the guy loved wrestling. He loved what they were doing, because they were actually using it for high spots they do training out of there. And so some wrestlers, so they trained during the week, and then they would have monthly shows. Well, apparently the wife absolutely hates wrestling and hated them, and so basically when their release came up, she was like, no, you can't let them renew. And so now they're trying to find a new venue, because that was the thing that they ran there for 3 years, and it was up until the pandemic they were running monthly shows there. And so that was like our own little like PWG thing. Like we had our own little space, because the main show would run in different areas, but that was like the one, that was the place where we all came every month to see like some of the up and coming talent and to see some of the main roster talent, and they would kind of put them they would do stuff with them there. And so that would have been a cool place for pictures. I may still just post them just so you can see what it looks like when they did wrestle there. But I think that's a great idea. I think that's cool I like to see venues like that, so that's cool.
And I mean, it's another way to get to know each other, because like, it is a part of the thing. And I have I have a good friend who they've switched around a bunch of venues, and he always brings it up. And I know this GCW show that I'm going to is actually in a pretty historic music theater that has been in the city for a long time. And Detroit has some fantastic old buildings. And so I'm like, I'm definitely getting pictures of that. But I was kind of scrolling on my Insta the other day and went, oh, Sam would think this is the funniest picture ever.
I would love it. I want to see. Yeah. And that's cool, because like we haven't, there's a place called the Grady Cole Center that's been here forever, and they just remodeled it. But before then, that's New Japan came through, and they ran a couple of shows with PWX in that venue. And actually went to an NXT show in that venue too. And like, it's just a kind of run-of-the-mill type of thing, but it was still cool. So maybe I can see if I can find some pictures of that, because I think that would be a cool thing to do, at least for me and you. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else cares, but we do.
Well, I think more people care than you think. We're
probably. Send us pictures of your venues too.
Yeah, there you go. See? I think that might start something, because it's fun. It helps. There's an atmosphere thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
So are there any other pay-per-views you want to talk about?
I think that was it.
Okay. So I guess we'll do the pay-per-views I've been to. And so I realize I've been to pay-per-views except for New Japan, for all the major promotions here. Well, except ECW, but and I haven't done a GCW thing yet, but hopefully GCW comes to Charlotte, and then I could go to that too. But so apparently the very first pay-per-view I went to, I had to look up the year because I couldn't remember. I had to Google it. I had to Google which pay-per-view was in Charlotte, because it was Vengeance, and it was 2006. And I vaguely remember it, but the thing was, like, I guess because I was also doing a lot of like house shows and like Raws and SmackDowns and stuff, so things were like blending together, and I couldn't remember like what was pay-per-view and what was what was Raw and SmackDown. So that pay-per-view had like of course, because being in Charlotte, it did have Ric Flair on it. And so he wrestled McFoley.
What?
Yeah. He wrestled Mick Foley in a 2 out of 3 falls match. It looks like John Cena faced Sabu in an Extreme Rules Lumberjack match.
Isn't it funny when you like remember some of the undercard or midcard stuff where you're like, oh yeah, I don't remember that. Well,
yeah, and then apparently there was like it was DX versus Spirit Squad in a 5-on-2 handicap match, which somehow DX just overcame the odds. to win that match.
Somehow.
And then like the main event was RBD versus Edge for the WWE Championship.
Nice.
So yeah, so that was cool. And then and this is one of the things where you are in a building with someone and you don't know it until years later. So Nikki and I went to TNA Genesis in 2009, and our friend Matthew, we found out a couple of years later, somehow I don't remember how it came up, and he was like, oh my God, I was at that pay-per-view too. So, and then here we go, we meet years later when the Young Bucks come to PWX, and actually we didn't even meet at that show. I think our friend has a podcast too, the Stupid and Delicious podcast, which is where I kind of got my first try at podcasting, which I thought it was just a thing where we basically just went on there and talked about the show that we went to. And so, but I think he listened, and that's how he ended. I think he came to talk to. I can't remember the exact details. So it's just so funny how that works out. That that you go to these bigger venues and then eventually cross paths later. But so that show had some cool stuff on it. It had Chris Sabin versus Alex Shelley for the X Division title.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And I believe Alex Shelley won that match, and I should have it written down. And I found it's funny because apparently I have the pictures on Facebook, but I guess I got them I think I'd transferred them over from MySpace to Facebook, which I'm glad I did. And I'm very glad that past Sam put like a little bit of detail in the captions. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, this is very helpful for future
funny.
me.
MySpace. Yeah. You guys got a MySpace reference today.
I did. You're welcome.
Killing it.
You are welcome for that. So, let's see. What
Somewhere
else
Tom was like, what?
Yeah, his ears are ringing. He's like, somebody said MySpace. Gotta come out of my hole now.
Awesome. I love it.
So then, yeah, let's see what else was on that match. So there was like, this card is crazy. Like, so it was Beer Money and Abyss and Matt Morgan against Jay Lethal and Consequences Creed, which if you watched TNA at the time, you know that is Xavier Woods. And so, and it was great because I loved Consequences Creed. So when he showed up in WWE, I knew who he was, and people were like, who is this? And I'm like, it's Consequences Creed. How do you not know this?
What is wrong with you people?
Like, watch things other than WWE, people.
Ooh,
even
Sam,
in 2000.
Come on now. Calm down. You can't.
Sorry. MySpace and telling people to watch more than one thing.
I know. My God.
Getting out of hand over here.
Don't become Grandpa Daz, okay?
Yeah, right. But yeah, so what else? There was Kurt Angle versus Jeff Jarrett in a no DQ match. Rhino versus Sting for the world title. And then this was also when Main Event Mafia and the Frontline thing was happening. And apparently they built it as a triple main event, which there's only one main event, but that's an argument for another. That's an argument for another day. But yeah, they built it as 3 main events. So and so they started the match, and then I do remember this, and then they stopped it and they made it a hardcore match.
Oh.
Yeah.
We changed our mind entirely. Never mind.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, typical TNA, but so that was a fun thing. And then I did go to a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. I went to Best in the World in 2016, and the match that stands out the most from that show was Steve Corino versus BJ Whitmer in an unsanctioned fight, and it was insane because so I didn't watch ECW except the WWE version of it. So so people were like, Steve Corino was, he was hardcore and did a lot of stuff in ECW, and I got to see a taste of it that night, and that match was crazy, and there was a lot of hardcore elements, obviously, and blood, and it was just, I was like, Steve Corino can still go, and BJ Whitmer was a good opponent for him. It was a lot of fun. And then that show also had Motor City Machine Guns on it versus The Addiction, and I don't remember. There's some other stuff on there, but that was a really fun show. That was my first, because ROH was coming here for a while. They would do a lot of TV tapings. And so that pay-per-view I got to go to, and we had pretty decent seats. I think we were like second row or something like that. So yeah. And then ROH, I feel like there was, They did do another pay-per-view. I cannot think of the name of it, and I don't know why it's not on my list. And Nikki and I were front row for it, and our friends were watching, and they were like tweeting, and they were like, "Oh, I saw them give you a high five," and I think it was it Matt? No, I don't think it was Matt Taven. Somebody gave us a high five though, and like because we were up front, they were like, our friends like got a big kick out of it because they were like watching our reactions and stuff. But that was a cool show. But and then I have done a couple of I've actually done a couple of AEW things. I did. I went to All In, so I wore my Starcast shirt today. But I actually won this shirt on Twitter before All In because they were doing giveaways all the time, or like, and so I got the shirt. But yeah, so All In was phenomenal and easily the best pay-per-view I've ever been to, and I talked about it.
I can't believe you got to go to that.
I don't know how this happened, and it was funny because I was at a Charlotte Knights baseball game with my sister and my mom because I think it was Mother's Day. And so we were there for a Mother's Day thing that they were doing. They did like a brunch and this stuff. And so my friends that I were going with, I had two friends who were also trying to get tickets, and they ended up somehow, I think they both ended up with tickets. And then we had one person end up just buying all the tickets for all of us because they ended up being 6 of us total. And I don't know how we got so lucky because those obviously was a hard thing to get tickets to, and it was fantastic. And it was so exciting just because wrestling was just on a different level then, and it was, I think, because you could see all the possibility of what wrestling could be,
what was happening,
right? And it was filling up with like the Ring of Honor, so like we were seeing stuff that was happening on Ring of Honor and in New Japan, and then on the Indies, and then it all basically just coincided in one giant event, and it was just really, really cool to be a part of, and the energy was just electric all night. And I was like, and I talked about this with David, I've talked about this a few times. I have never experienced something like when Cody Rhodes' music hit, because that was like went right when he was like super hot, right. And it was incredible. Like literally everybody was on their feet in the entire stadium. It was loud. There's just electricity just vibrating through everybody. Like it was really cool because it was just this like giant communal experience basically in a building. And I don't know if it came through on TV what it was like in that building, but it's just, I've never experienced anything like that before, even like at, concerts and things like that. It's just that it was almost like, it's probably a once in a lifetime type of thing, but it was really, really cool. And so I loved that event, obviously. And then I did go to Double or Nothing last year at Daly's Place. We had gone to Daly's Place before. We went to Fight for the Fallen because it was on my sister's birthday. Oh. And so we drove down. It was supposed to be some of the people that we went to All In with, but then things happened and they weren't able to go. So it was one of our friends, Kiefer, who comes with us, or we see him at PWX shows. He came down with us and we went to Fight for the Fallen. So that was really cool. And so then last year I got to cover it for Daily DDT. Oh. And so Nikki came, it was gonna just be me, but I was like, Nikki was like, she's like, you probably shouldn't drive to Jacksonville by yourself. Yeah. It's like a 7-hour drive. And so one of our friends, Doug, who also comes to PWX, and he's the one with the Stupid and Delicious podcast that I was on, he came down with us. And it was the travel with the hotel, that whole experience, because it was on Memorial Day weekend and the hotel was not prepared at all. And it was just a mess getting into we couldn't even get into the hotel. Like the line was just like down the street, and it was a mess, and checking in was a mess, and we had to be at the show. Like we had to change it to get ready for the show, because you can't just, when you're as media, you can't just wear wrestling shirts. Right. You have to wear nice clothes.
You have to actually look like you're halfway professional.
Right, exactly. And so like Nikki and I were doing our makeup in the lobby. We went to the bathroom to change clothes because we couldn't get into our room. Because the rooms weren't ready, because they weren't ready for anybody. A lot of people that were going to Double or Nothing were at that hotel because it was like a mile from Daly's Place. So obviously a lot of people were like, okay, well, this is extremely close. And It was a nightmare, and they had to like hold our belongings like into they had to go put it in like a locked room
We
in
did
the
this
loft.
in New York too. There
Did
is
they?
an epidemic, I think, of
Uh-huh.
picking just any old, and I get it. They're big cities, but
Sure.
the idea here is that it makes it extremely difficult. Like, this is what we've decided is if they don't move all out to the United Center, so it's in the actual city, we're gonna probably, because of the experience that we had with WrestleMania in New York, because if we had a car, if we had driven to the stadium and parked, we
Mhm.
would have been out of there. It was the taking the shuttle from the hotel or taking the train from Midtown or taking the whatever that
Right.
messed everybody out because the Ubers were so screwed.
That was
If
how it was at
we
All
had
In.
it, right, this is the same exact problem I hear people continually talking about, because
Yeah, people are
these
still talking
aren't
about this. Yeah.
these aren't cities, because you can't put a 65,000 seat arena in New York City. You can't put it in Jacksonville, Florida. You can put it in Seattle, kind of, because of where those are, and they have a train. And Seattle would be a really good city these days, especially because the trains are even
Yeah.
better, because it's got a more Euro vibe. But nobody has like reliable transpo. So what ends up happening? But if we had a rental, I said this to Bob, it would have cost us $20 to rent and probably 30 or $40 to be at the parking lot. But
Mhm.
we were 7 miles from our hotel, but could not get to it because interchanges and interstates, and these are industrial parts of these things. It's the same thing as like that's where you get the
Mhm.
Wrestling Observer where Brian Alvarez was talking about eating Domino's on the sidewalk. It's like, it's all funny unless
Yeah.
you've been there.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We have jokes about WrestleMania 35. We were there, and the we were there part is, and we made it out.
Yeah.
I remember when we got to our hotel at 3:30 in the morning, and the best comment came out of my friend's mouth, which was, "I'm very glad that we were the protagonists in this story." That we were like, there was scaling fences on the table at one point to get to I mean, it's yeek. So
Yeah.
if they don't switch it to the United Center, which is in the city and you can walk around and
Right.
you can do more, we're renting a hotel
Yeah.
and a car, but I don't even care if we're in the city for the hotel, but we're getting a car to drive to the venue,
Yeah.
because
I
that
would.
is
Yeah, we
you.
learned our lesson with All In for sure, because we took, well, and see, we took an Uber into, like, we went to dinner and then we took an Uber to the venue, which was fine, but then it was getting out
Out.
that was
There's no
miserable. And
getting
no,
out.
there's no, yeah, and then they, of course, because it's a high like, because they know there's a ton of people that need them, they jacked up the prices
Oh
for like
yeah.
ridiculous. They were like hundreds of dollars,
Oh
and then
no, a
like,
man took pity on us and allowed us to
that's
get in
nice.
his van, and we were like, it was amazing.
Yeah, we walked like a half a mile to a hotel that we could see. It took us like a half an hour to get to this hotel. Then we requested an Uber from there. The prices had dramatically gone down. It was still like a 30-minute wait, and like the woman that came to pick us up, like, she didn't know she didn't know there was a big event or anything, and so we were telling her like how miserable it was to get out of there, and it took us forever. And she was like, she was like, that's terrible. She was like, there's no way. She was like, there shouldn't be this difficult to leave an event. And I was like, yeah, it was a nightmare. And then I see that it keeps happening. Like, I keep seeing people who, like, even at Revolution, like, they were
Yeah,
trying to get out of, they were
too.
trying to get out of, the parking was, I mean, the Ubers and stuff, the pricing was terrible. It was taking them a long time to get out. So it's a very unfortunate side effect that hopefully they can figure out how to remedy, because it's a nightmare.
And beyond the baseline Uber scenario thing is that I think that night between the three of us we had 3 Uber apps where we were trying,
That's
and
what we were. There were 6 of us.
I think the entire time
we were like
that
switching back and forth between Uber and Lyft.
I don't think an Uber we physically ordered ever showed up that night. We didn't, all the Uber, and we would go to the drivers that had no one in their cars, and they'd be like, go to the app. And it's like, And I mean, I'm not even kidding you when I tell you that Kofi Kingston, they counted that 3 count happened. He started getting the belt. I ordered an Uber.
Wow.
We even got t-shirts. There was no way. It was a mess. Anyway,
Yeah.
we could go on and on. Let's talk about the weather now.
Yeah, right.
No,
But anyway, Double or Nothing was, once we finally got there, it was a lot of fun, and I got to do my first in-person media scrum. So I got to talk to. So I've done a few virtual ones, which is a lot of fun. But so I did the in-person one and got to ask Tony a couple of questions, and I got to see Britt Baker win the title, and the crowd was super. And that was the first pay-per-view with fans after the pandemic. So the fans were hot all night long. They were super into a lot of stuff. They were really into the women's matches, which was really cool to see. Nice. That they even in, because there was a Sheeta wrestled on. Wait, was it Sheeta? No, it was Riho. Yeah, because it was Riho was on the buy-in, and the crowd was super into her. They were really into the Britt Baker match. People were losing their minds because they thought Orange Cassidy might actually beat Kenny Omega. And it was funny because I was sitting in the media section, and so my sister and Doug were sitting. It was their seats ended up being, because they had to, their seats were actually on the other side, but because it was the Double or Nothing theme, there were like slot machines that they had as like props, and it was actually in the seats where my sister and Doug were supposed to be, so they got moved down to the opposite side of the door that Jon Moxley kicks open. And so they ended up being, and so they were like, I could see them like the entire, like if I looked like to my left and looked down, like I could see them, and if they turned around they would be able to see me. So we ended up sort of being close together. That's cool. Which it's fun. And so, but she said that they were talking about how there were some people in front of them who were like absolutely convinced that Orange Cassidy was going to beat Kenny Omega for the title. And she was like, yeah, she was like, which they did do a very convincing job, but I was like, there's no way Kenny Omega is dropping this title right now. But, and I was like, but it was still a lot of fun. But yeah, she was like, they were really mad when Kenny retained. And so I guess they definitely suspended their belief for a little bit.
Well, they're the perfect wrestling fans, and good for them. But I love what you love.
Yes, and there was, this is a topic that we can also go back to before, is they have got to do something about their about seating for people in wheelchairs, because Doug is in a wheelchair, and so they could see, like they had room for the wheelchair and they were with other people, but if people were standing up, they couldn't see a damn thing. And and it happened a lot. Yeah. And so Daly's Place, the venue itself is really great and it's got some cool stuff, but like that was just, it hindered a lot of their experience, because he would have to like kind of like put himself on his hands and like push himself up to be able to see. And obviously you can't do that for long periods of time. And he was like, and people were standing up for things that they probably didn't necessarily need to stand up for. And so then they were missing things and they were just having to listen. And he's ran into that issue even with AEW shows here in Charlotte. I think when he went to Columbia, his view, I think was fine, and I don't think he had that issue, but it's really hard for and he said it's really hard for them to get tickets. Like nobody at the venue like knows how to like
do the disability. I know how this. I've worked in ticket offices before, and I've had to deal on both sides, and there is it's tricky, and I don't.
Well, and it's even trickier in the pandemic too, because like he would call the office and there would be nobody there because it's been and then he couldn't, but then he wouldn't be able to get the tickets online, and so he would call, and then like he would have to leave, like he ended up having to leave a message for somebody, and then they like called him back, no, they didn't call him back, they were supposed to, and like he tried getting ahead of it, and he called like early to make sure it was like before tickets went on, so it was a whole ordeal just to get tickets to Dynamite here. And so it's just sucks. Yeah. And I know that's not necessarily a wrestling promotion type of thing, but it is something that, I think more wrestling promotions need to take into consideration, not just when their tickets go on sale, but for their fans who, when they are actually there, like to make sure that they're able to see, you know, at all times or for, you know, most of the show and things like that. And I think, and he tried reaching out to Daly's Place, never got a response back. He tried reaching out to AEW to let them know what happened. He never heard back from anybody. So, you know, that's and I know that I'm sure there's other people that, you know, have probably had those same experiences.
Absolutely. I know this from, and I'll say this in like to kind of prop up the fact that it's not just AEW. It is a new problem, is that my mother-in-law similarly cannot, like, she can't stand, and she needs to sit, and she needs to be in the disabled section, which is they've got it like cordoned off as this was for an NXT show at a venue, you know, a few years ago, obviously. But the idea was that where they kind of put you, it's almost like they put you in a beer garden with some chairs, which is not like, that's not reassuring. And I had to go through some work to try and figure out exactly where they wanted to put us and what that was. And it's like, you know, she's got to have my husband's help to do these things. And she wants to see this just as much as the next. And what ultimately ended up happening was the other wrestling fans in that section saying, hey, why don't we move this stuff around and put this chair here so that you can sit by the bar. So when you want to stand up, if you do want to stand up and cheer, you can do it. So it wasn't the venue. It was the other fans around us going, hey, this is awesome. We got this fan here that we want to help see. And while that's awesome, and that is the heart of most every wrestling fan you come across these days in the real wrestling fans, it shouldn't be our responsibility to make the venue I mean, we want as many people as possible. That means everybody, every walk of life, every need.
If wrestling is for everyone, then that includes, you know,
and
making
AEW,
sure they can see it.
They do a lot. So they should, I think it's unfortunate. Hopefully that maybe we can push that issue somewhere along the line.
And that's and I would like to, because I
think that they would, I think if they, in the grand scheme of all the crazy, they seem like the ones that would be most receptive to hearing that feedback. But we got to figure out a way
to make them listen
to
it.
And how do we get that feedback to them?
And because I've even thought about, and you know, this is something we can talk about off air, but I had thought about maybe if we can, I don't know how, if we can figure out how to do it, but then maybe have Doug be on the show so he can talk about his experience about what happened.
I'd love that.
Because this has happened to him multiple times. It wasn't just a Daly's Place thing. It's happening here in Charlotte, because he lives in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So he drives up to Charlotte for wrestling shows because that's generally the closest. But and then and that's what he said even about Columbia. He because it was where the Gamecocks play basketball, so the seating is a little different. And so he talked to a friend who also uses a wheelchair about, like, you know, he didn't want to have the same experience, and he's like sent pictures from like before the show started. It looked like he had a really good view. He didn't you know, after the show he didn't say anything about having any issues seeing. So as far as I know, his experience at that arena ended up being probably the best one he's had of the 3 AEW shows that he's been to. So so sometimes it is just a matter of the venue, and sometimes it is, and just I don't know, they've got, like we've talked about, like there's a lot of things to think about when you're running a TV show and a live show. But you know, that is something I think probably keeps coming up, and people aren't realizing like how hard it is to, and it's hard just to even buy the tickets, because then you have to buy, like he would have to buy a ticket for his wife too. And so there's
I've dealt with it before on both ends. Like I said, I can lend some even insider knowledge to the lack of support. I don't think it's necessarily the people that do the, you know, handicap seating, as it were, is the lack of support from who they're selling the most tickets to. The bosses of that is also part of that equation. And I think it would be a fun and valuable conversation, because everyone be a wrestling fan, every single one of us, like,
and you have to make that hard, and if you want to make wrestling more accessible, you have to realize that it's not accessible just in like the environment, but that includes the environment you're creating, because you want it to be like, you know, I applaud a lot of what they do with Culture City. Like I think that's phenomenal that they have these sensory rooms, they have these packets. Like I think that's phenomenal. So I think that they can, so they're clearly aware of making it an experience for a lot of for even more wrestling fans. So I think that then they can take that next step and figure out how to make it work for people who are in wheelchairs or who can't stand for long periods of time,
Right.
or things like that. So I think that I mean, if you want to be all inclusive and you're wanting to be known as a promotion that is trying to make it more available for more people, then that's something that they've got to address.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yes. So I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but
no, I think it's important though.
Yeah.
I am tangent friendly girl. We just got to make sure that everything is going along.
Yeah, so we'll figure out how to, maybe talk about that.
We'll solve this problem.
We'll figure it out.
We'll Cody Rhodes this shit.
That's right.
I said it. It's fine.
You did.
I'll take the hate.
As much as that pyro, you'll have as much heat as that pyro maybe that he has now.
Yeah.
He has all the fancy expensive pyro.
Not
now.
strong enough to set a WrestleMania sign on fire though. I mean,
no,
how
and
good is it?
Yeah, that is true. And then
let's get to New
his
Japan.
trap door got stuck too. So
we should talk about New Japan.
We should talk about New Japan. Yeah, I'm still catching up on. So I have not seen. I didn't get to Okada versus Zack Sabre Jr. because I was gonna watch that, but baseball is back, and I already had 3 strongs to catch up on too, and my laptop was dying because I usually watch on the TV, but we were in a different room, so we were watching the laptop. My laptop was dying after 3 hours of New Japan Strong, so it's like, all right, well, and then I did see something from this show too. I believe that the tag title match was that last night, or was this weekend 2 shows?
Hyper Battle was one, but there were multiple things that went on during Hyper Battle, which I can spoil for you or let you watch on your own.
The tag title match has been spoiled because I was double checking something for a story we're going to talk about later. So I did see that, which I'm not disappointed. I mean, it's fine that it's spoiled. Good for. I mean, I did like
a good match though.
I did like, and I did like, and I do like Goto and Yoshihashi. So I'm a little disappointed for them.
It's a lot of fun what they're doing.
Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and get caught, or I don't know where you want to start with New Japan.
Well, I think that so you did not see Hyper Battle, and
I didn't. Oh no, I did not see Hyper Battle, and I did finally go back and watch the semifinals and the finals of the New Japan Cup. I watched that the Monday before. It was still technically Mania week, but before the Mania week matches started, and the matches that we did not count towards what I watched last week, I did go ahead and on Monday night I think we watched Dark, and then I was like, let's get these. We need to watch these matches because I heard there were good things about them. So I at least have watched those.
All right. Well, we won't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
So now, do you care if I talk about? Well, I mean, I basically
no. Go ahead.
In those. But so, as part of Hyper Battle, there were some like highlights that were sort of story highlights, as opposed to. Although I do recommend that Okada Zack match, just go watch it.
Oh yeah, I will watch that regardless because
there was some good stuff on here. But one of the things that did happen during this was that Sonata, I believe it's his orbital bone that is fractured. If I'm not, I could be wrong. Whatever. But it's something bad, and I think it was that. And so he did have to vacate the U.S. Championship.
For him. I hate
Me too, especially at this time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hate it anytime, but I hate that, because he's only had the title. He's only defended it. Like, has he only defended it one time?
One time, I believe.
Man, I hate that for him.
And it sucks. But and they used it to build Windy City Riot, which is coming up next weekend from when we're recording. So, and it was kind of funny because he showed up. I was making fun of him a little bit, which I know that you would not mind, because he was like, "Give me the belt, give me the belt." Now, again, I'm not like I'm exaggerating a little, but he decided to calm down and tell Sonata that he was entitled to that belt because he'd been robbed of all the other belts up to this point, and that.
Oh wait, who is he?
I'm sorry, Will Ospreay.
Okay. I saw the name in the notes, so I assume that's who you were talking about.
I'm sorry, yes. No, maybe a little more clear. So Sonata was in there talking about, I'm vacating the belt and I've got to do the thing. And Will Ospreay decided to show up and come on and march on in there and demand that he was given that belt because he had been robbed of the
Oh,
Universal
geez.
Championship and everything
He's
else
still
that's
on that?
happened. Oh, the United Empire has been scorned. They've been scorned. But so he demanded the belt from Sonata,
Of
and
course
while
he
he
did.
was throwing his, give it to me right now, you give me that belt while I, our hero Tanahashi showed up behind him,
Of
and
course. As he
this is
should.
one of my favorite parts of this is that he cut a bit of a promo in English.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, you
And
know it's serious when he does that.
I know. They're not kidding. When things come unleashed here coming in the next few months, which is happening because visas are coming and
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
happening now as of stuff I've been listening to this morning.
Yeah.
He looked at Will Ospreay and basically he said, you fight me for that belt. And I was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
You fight him for that belt. So that's happening on Windy City Riots. They're
Nice.
building the crap out of that.
Yeah, they
Or
really
no,
are.
I'm sorry. That's not happening on Windy City Riot. That's happening on Dontaku.
Okay.
Yes, President Dontaku. So that's like a great, so already that show is shaping up to be fun.
Yeah.
Windy City Riot is next week. Will Ospreay is fighting, he's obviously
John
wrestling
Moxley,
John
right?
Moxley because he called him out because he's crazy. There's a bunch of other really good, I think. Ishii's on that card.
Uh-huh.
We may take a peek at that one a little early and talk about it next week, depending on where you and I are, because it's just a really good show.
Yeah, the show looks really good. And then AEW was like, hey, we're having Battle of the Belts that day. And I was like, you're doing what now?
I know.
And on top of that, Pro Wrestling Revolver is that day. And that's, I think it's the Swerve show. So Swerve is like doing the card or whatever. But the main event is Swerve versus Athena.
Can we stop putting all the good wrestling at the same time?
Yeah. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, AEW, please. I know that you have to have they're doing like that was their thing. They're doing the quarterly like big show that's sort of like a pay-per-view, but not a pay-per-view. And Battle of the Belts because it was in Charlotte this year, and it was a lot of fun.
That's right.
Like, yeah, it's funny because Cody was supposed to be on that show, and then he wasn't, and then it was reported that maybe he had COVID or
that was right.
And then he had the thing on Insta story about protecting children. So then we didn't know if maybe his daughter got it, or then maybe he was saying to like make sure you protect yourself because children are vulnerable. So it was never confirmed that Cody had COVID, but he entered, but I think they said he entered COVID protocol. So I don't know if he actually had it or if he was exposed, or it was never clarified, but that match ended up not happening. And Sammy wrestled Dustin Rhodes on that show, and that match ended up being really good. Sammy retained the TNT title, and then I guess we should have known then that was kind of like the beginning of the end with Cody, because he was kind of gone like within a few weeks after that, if I think about it now. So that's interesting. Yeah, it's weird to think back about that now and just what was going on at the time.
You have your retrospectives about the fact that you're like, because of the way that wrestling works, it's like you're kind of part of the story. Sometimes you don't even realize it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we all just thought, and I'm not saying that Cody wasn't sick or somebody, he hadn't been
exposed, of course, we don't
but
know.
It's just the timing was just, now that you think of, you go back and think about that, I think he appeared, I do think he was back on TV like once or twice after that, and then that was kind of it for him in AEW. But yeah, so hopefully Battle of the Belts ends up, I think it'll be a strong show. It looks like we're getting Nyla versus Thunder Rosa there, so we're kind of getting that out of the way, which I guess is probably a smart thing to do. And that's nothing against Nyla. I do like her a lot, and I think she's fantastic. And but that match doesn't, I don't know. I guess this is probably, if they're going to have this match, then I guess this is the place to do it. If they're not going to do it on a Dynamite, then this would work, because this is not a Double or Nothing match. I think they have bigger things for Thunder Rosa between now and then. So yeah, Battle of the Belts I think will be fun, but I am kind of leaning more toward wanting to watch Windy City Riot.
Same.
And then watching Battle of the Belts later, because I'm sure Battle of the Belts will get spoiled because I'm on Twitter all the time.
Wait, it's Battle of the Belts, so it's not technically Rampage, so you don't have to actually...
No, so I don't have to cover it right then, but I'm on Twitter, so I will see what happens. But I mean, I don't...
Well, sure, of course.
I mean, maybe I don't really foresee anything getting... I don't really see any title changes. And that's what happened the last time. I don't think there was a title change on Battle of the Belts, if I remember correctly. So, I mean... because
I think we should probably remember if it was that memorable, so that's probably the point, right?
Yeah, well, and see, that was that thing. I think Cody would have, had Cody been on that show, I think there would have been that title change with the TNT title, but because he wasn't there, it was because it was the interim, and then it ended up being an interim.
It was the interim match
that was weird, and then Sammy won it, and then yeah, it was that whole thing that was kind of odd how they were handling it. So at least this time we'll have a clear thing. So I wonder if we're going to get Sammy versus Ethan Page on that show. Because, you know, Ethan on Rampage, Ethan Page was calling and said he only does big money matches. I don't think so maybe they'll do... Well, no, that's not a title, though, because Scorpio has the title. What am I thinking? So I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, I think it'll be a good show. It's not there. They don't have, which is kind of weird. They don't have a lot of build for it, but I don't think they had a lot of build for the last Battle of the Belts either. I feel like they announced it like 2 or 3 weeks before the show. And it was when they had announced, like, they were doing like that loop because they did a Dynamite and Raleigh, and they did something in Greensboro, and then they did Charlotte. And unfortunately I could not do the other, because I wanted to do Raleigh and Greensboro too, but we couldn't fit that in, and then we made Battle of the Belts happen basically. And so it seems like they're not really kind of putting a whole lot of, I don't want to say they're not putting effort into it, they're just not putting a lot of extra promotion into it. So it should be, and especially when Windy City Riot has been building for a few weeks now. So yeah, we'll probably be talking about Windy City Riot next week.
Probably. It's hard to skip those matches, really.
Yeah, because that's a really stacked show. Like, they built that like a pay-per-view.
They sure did.
Yeah.
Forget the main event. There's so many good undercard.
Yeah.
I think, is Carl Fredericks wrestling on that card?
I think so. I want to say yes.
I think he is. I mean, there's so many good. Yeah. Okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You guys, TBD, okay, guys?
Yeah.
And also, someone who doesn't get to see a Dynamite until the 29th of June. I'm jealous of you. Okay, so I had to get that out of my system. We're gonna do a thing about a member of the United Empire that deserves time. And what I did is I made sure, because I wanted to. There's a couple of things, so I'm going to read this because I have a little thingy that, because...
I had to refresh myself on, like, because I knew the basic details, but then there was something that I couldn't quite remember. And because it was translated, I can't remember if it was translated properly, like, in certain things. And so I had to go back and refresh myself on the story this morning as well.
But I had to read this story because this was the one that came with the... quote, which is almost as good as the entire story.
Yeah.
So Great O'Con saved a girl this week. Is this the right one?
No, it was the story.
This is it. So
yeah, the incident itself took place on March 29th, but we only found out about it because the Japanese police gave him a letter of appreciation.
So this is dated 5 April 2022, and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Great O'Con was given a letter of appreciation by the Nakahara police on Monday after saving a 10-year-old girl from an assault on March 29th. So they said that the incident took place. I'm not going to try and butcher the Japanese language like a jerk, but a 61-year-old man grabbed a 10-year-old girl and was about to take her away when he was stopped by Great O'Con.
Mm-hmm.
O'Con noticed the incident after the girl asked for help. He managed to subdue the man and save the girl's mother from a critical situation. So he not only saved the girl, but helped the girl's mother.
Yeah.
This is my favorite, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Me too.
I really have to. Okay, so speaking about the incident, he said, where is it? Is it the pancakes thing?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I've got to make sure.
It's I think it's in this. Oh, whoops.
Don't do it. I got to read it. Because he says, oh my gosh, I put it up here. I got to make sure I get the quote.
Yeah, I was going to say, if the quote's not in here, I have the quote saved in a thing I saved on my phone.
All right, you have probably got to do it because I thought I had the right one.
Yeah, I thought the quote was in this article as well, but apparently it's not. So give me 1 second. We are super professional here.
Where is it?
Here is the quote here. He said, before she cooperated with the police, O'Con asked the girl, "Are you okay? I know you were scared. I have pancakes. You want some?" And he said he called to the parents. He said, it says the girl, and then this was the second best quote was the girl's mother asked what his name was, and he said, "My name is the Great O'Con of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and you can watch me wrestle if you would like."
Thank you for having it.
You're welcome. I thought it was in here too, and I'm glad I had that screenshot.
Me too. I was so like, Great O'Con. You know, I was like skeptical when he first showed up. I wasn't sure.
I will never boo that man ever again.
That guy, I'm sorry, but on a weekend where Will Ospreay is coming in and demanding a belt, this guy is saving people. I love especially that he made sure and said, if you want to come and watch me wrestle, you can totally do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, and if I was that girl, O'Con would be, even if I didn't watch wrestling, O'Con would be my favorite wrestler, and I would have all of his merch. Hopefully New Japan can, like, maybe they can hook her up with some tickets or something and get her to a show.
They definitely need to. And I just love that story because in the end of the day, I mean, you know, pancakes and wrestling aside, like, he saved a girl.
Yeah.
And
she was very young on top of that.
10. She's 10 years old.
It's traumatizing. And I thank God Great O'Con was in the right place at the right time. And he didn't panic, and he figured out a way to act to not only save her, but also subdue this man so that he couldn't get away. Which is phenomenal.
Well, yeah, I mean, he went, like, he did the whole thing. It was like, you don't get to get away with this. I'm saving these people. And so he ultimately did, from that area, that town, got a letter of appreciation. And he was very humble about it, I felt, with a lot of these I mean, the translations are tricky. Those are Japanese and English do not translate easily.
Right.
But that's really solid, and I think that says a lot about sort of where the New Japan guys are mentally, because that doesn't just like show up in a vacuum. That's kind of something that's out there, and I just was so you said I'm glad you remembered, and it was because Justin or somebody had written an article or popped it back up on our group, and I was like,
because I saw the story a few times, like, coming up on my feed, like, when people would find it later. And so I just, because of the timing of it, I didn't really think about it for the show. So I'm really glad that you did, because, you know, I'm glad that he definitely still deserves attention and appreciation for his, because it was a heroic act, because who knows what would have happened had that man been successful. So, you know, Great O'Con is a hero and should always be seen as one.
Yes. So thanks for that, Great O'Con. You are the man. Hopefully you hear that from
Yes. And then also, I don't know if that'll spoil anything, so maybe I just shouldn't say. Because I saw something from one of the shows I mean, I guess I can spoil that. I don't know if people...
You can probably spoil it. I don't know.
Okay, so when I was going to search... So spoiler, so if you don't want to hear it, just fast forward. So when I was going to double check it, because I was refreshing my memory on because I forgot that there was a link to the story in our notes. And so I was going to refresh myself, because I couldn't remember for sure if he had actually subdued the guy or if he just rescued the girl. And then I was double checking to make sure that was correct. So when I was searching Great O'Con, I wasn't thinking about there being a show this morning, and he won the tag team titles. I'm assuming that was probably already in the works, but maybe the New Japan decided to reward him for his heroic act, but maybe that was already in the works. But regardless, Great-O-Khan now is now a champion, officially with New Japan, but also he's a champion in our hearts.
In our hearts and minds.
Yes, definitely. So good for Great-O-Khan. I'm happy for, and Jeff Cobb, because we love Jeff Cobb.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yes, that's
right. That's his tag team part. Oh my God, we do love Jeff Cobb.
We do love Jeff Cobb
so much.
Probably smells good too. But
you're so cute. I have a friend who's met him a couple times. I'll ask.
There's a thing that goes. There's a reason for that comment. Some of you probably have heard this. It goes back several years with somebody who ended up being a terrible person who was involved pre-speaking out, but then speaking out, other things came out against this person. But one of the things was this woman, I don't want to go into it. I don't want to. Anyway, she had apparently she screenshot a text message, and she joked and said, because he was working with Jeff Cobb at the time, and she's like, oh, he looks like he smells good. I bet he smells good. And so wrestling Twitter will randomly bring that quote up.
Got it. So, makes total sense.
So it is. And it's something that, like, when I see him, that's obvious. That's one of the things I think of. Oh, I bet he smells good. He looks like he smells good. So, but yeah, so that's what that reference was from. But yes, excellent. So
well, I think that we're not totally caught up on Strongs right now. Is that true?
No, I am caught. I watched. So last night I watched Rivals for March 27th.
Okay, perfect.
And then I watched last week's Strong Style Evolved, and I watched last night's episode. So I am caught up.
Awesome. Well, do you want to talk about these cards then?
We can.
You don't have to go crazy. We can just do last night. Are there highlights? Are there highlights from the last few weeks?
Well, I do. I will say, Alex Kozlov really wants you to know that this is the 8th version of Black Tiger, because he said it so many times during the March 27th show that if you were doing a drinking game, you would be drunk before the match was over, because he kept saying, this is the 8th iteration of Black Tiger. Black Tiger 8 is what he kept calling him. And then he would just, like, he said it so many times during that match. I was like, bro, we get it.
I didn't realize it until you just
said God, it was
did mention it a lot. I mean, I have my love of Rocky Romero and his role as a Black Tiger at one point. Obviously, it was
which I get the point. I get what Alex is trying to say. Like, I understand it.
Well, yeah, he's the eighth. He's the 8th Black Tiger, Sam.
Yeah. So I was like, Alex, buddy, we got it. I understand. You're just trying to make sure. For whatever reason, he was just harping on it, and I was like, and I guess because he was wrestling Rocky, and Rocky has been Black Tiger before, and so that's what he was getting at. But it was just, but no, not the 8th, not this. This one is the 8th, not Rocky, or the other 7. And I will say, other highlights from these two shows is I got Filthy Tom and his short jorts 2 shows in a row. And so I had 2 tweets last night that were, which I've tweeted this before, but they were Tom Lawler short jorts appreciation tweet.
Wow.
And so and then I was like, another. So I was like, oh, he's in the second show. So I was like, another Filthy Tom Lawler short jorts appreciation
that
tweet.
Team Lawler fight there on the showdown was a really, 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 really good.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there was a lot. And I didn't realize that Kratos was with him, because, we talked about him being in Bloodsport.
Right.
And he was in the I didn't know that. And it was funny because I knew that he was in NWA as just Kratos. So they called him JR Kratos. And I was like, wait, he has a first name? So apparently in New Japan, he has a first name. But yeah, and he's a huge dude, and he's very intimidating, and he fits right in with Team Filthy. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that was a good match. Uemura versus Daniel Garcia was good too.
Yeah, it was.
That was very good.
That Uemura kid is just gonna be a big fat star, man.
Yeah, I think so. And putting him against somebody like Daniel Garcia, and now we have Daniel Garcia in the sports entertainment stuff, which think is the correct place for him. I think putting him with Jericho, like I get that because it's Jericho and he's smart and he has tons of knowledge. So I get that part. I just don't think Daniel Garcia is not a sports entertainer. Maybe he'll surprise me. Maybe he'll prove me right. Maybe. And so, but at least in New Japan, he gets to do Daniel Garcia things without the sports entertainer
they
part
get
of it.
more out of the wrestlers in that situation than
definitely.
I'm more excited to see New Japan Strong Daniel Garcia than I am Jericho Appreciation Society anything but Daniel Garcia.
Yes. And also
I'm sorry, did I say that? Oh.
What?
Sorry, no, a little offhanded jab at the
I'm not
JAS.
Yeah, I'm not
we'll figure out.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the JAS. I do like some of the people in it, but I don't like what they're doing with it. But maybe they'll surprise, because I was obviously like when it first happened, I hated all of it. I was like, this is stupid and I can't stand it. And then people were like, well, watch, it'll end up growing on us, which is possible because it's very possible. Plenty. Yeah, they do that. So, but as of right now, I don't enjoy it. But we'll see. Maybe it'll turn into something that's even more tongue in cheek, and it'll be funny, and I'll be into it, but we'll see.
Prove us wrong. We're happy to be wrong.
Yeah, we are. And then in the second, the getting to see Tom Lawler twice, on Strong from last week, we did get the 8th iteration of Black Tiger again with Kratos against Rocky. Yeah, I think so. I'll have to check my notes on that. But we got him against Rocky versus ROH. Well, it was before he won it, but the ROH Pure Champion, Wheeler Yuta. Yes. Who we also love.
We do love Wheeler Yuta.
Even if people...
Paul.
I was going to say, even if people say some things, I was like, I don't want to...
It's okay. I will... Unfortunately, I have a relentless sense of sarcastic humor. So if you tell me that you're not going to be into that, I'm working up an entire Christmas card in my head. It's... Fortunately, everyone has a good sense of humor, it seems like here, so it should be fine.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, I don't know him that well, so I was like, I don't want to be mean, and obviously people can like who they like and dislike who they like it's not that serious. But then I was like, I don't know him like that, so I was like, I don't want him to think I'm just being an asshole.
I don't care if he thinks I'm an asshole or not, so we're good. We have a good balance here.
Good. But anyway, I'm always excited for Wheeler Yuta, and even more so after the last week of what we've seen of Wheeler Yuta. So I don't care if people don't think he has a personality or
he's Blackpool now, so he's in.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think because I was thinking about it when the comment was made that, that he doesn't have much of a personality. I was like, Lance Storm didn't either, and it worked for him. So
he'll get.
I think it'll. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, he'll get there.
I think so too.
This is part of a process. This is not like This feels more like a New Japan build of an act than it does.
Yeah, like a Young Lion type of deal.
Yeah, this feels a lot like. I mean, where I hope Shota Umino is going to go, but also where Yu Uemura or Ren Narita or somebody, like, it feels like a similar to that. Mm-hmm. Even the Shibata's boys, how they're building them right now. It feels more like that to me.
Yeah. And I think with the Blackpool Combat Club, that's the proper way to do it with how they do things. And see, that was the thing about kind of putting somebody like Daniel Garcia with Jericho, because Jericho obviously is extremely gifted on the microphone, even if he cuts very lazy promos now, or at times. Daniel Garcia is also that type where he is known for his wrestling and what he does in the ring, and he is not super strong on the mic from what little bit I've heard of him, which he doesn't necessarily need to be because he does all of his talking in the ring. And so I kind of think that Yuta is the same. And I've also, because I talked to Yuta briefly at PWX a couple of weeks ago, and nice. It was very brief, but even because Doug has seen him he also wrestles for Turbo, is a very tiny promotion in South Carolina. Like, they wrestle in parking lots. And some of the wrestlers I know I've seen before, and they're really good. But so Yuta wrestles there as well sometimes, and he was just talking about how Yuta is extremely shy, and I think that's a lot of sense. Yeah, and so I think that's a lot of where maybe he doesn't have the promo ability yet, because maybe it's something that they're kind of building with him. I thought the promo that he cut on Friday was solid. I don't think there was any, because I mean, obviously John Moxley can cut a hell of a promo, and somebody was like, it's not fair to make you to cut a promo against John Moxley, which I get, but I think having Yuta, I thought that was for what we've seen of him so far. I thought it was, it was okay, and I think he'll get better the more comfortable he gets with it. And like you said, the way they're building him as somebody in the ring first, and they are building the character as, this person who is strong-willed and won't give up even when he has the literal blood beat out of him. But yeah, so go ahead.
I think that he is in a situation right now where there's like still two kinds of wrestling fans watching AEW. There's the not WWE brain necessarily, but just there's a WWE like way of watching things, and then there's a New Japan way of watching things. And I think that striking a balance, booking, pleasing both of those people, knowing full well that there's an intersection of the ones that you need their money because of revenue, I think that's tricky. And I think that a lot of times, I don't think, like, I would almost put money on the fact, unless he's a total flop, that someone like Paul ends up liking Yuta down the road. Right. And he would admit it. And that's one thing that's fun about like the good wrestling fans, is that if you're wrong, I'll admit it, whatever. I think down the road that you could see realistically, maybe not with this wrestler, maybe with some other wrestler, but this is a good example, is down the road going, oh, okay, now he's good, and I see where people were going, and I didn't necessarily have patience for that style of building a wrestler, because it's not what I'm used to, but it's maybe not what I put in my mind as the way to do it. And I think that you're still teaching people AEW is not WWE, and it's not ROH, and it's not New Japan. It's all those things. Right. From Tony Khan and his VPs and their perspective. So we're teaching, this is still a new kind of wrestling that we're teaching people. He's teaching people how to like and not like. And he's also still learning. Like, let's be real. Right. This guy doesn't have like 50 years of booking experience. He has I've been reading the newsletter slightly longer than he's been booking wrestling. Like,
Yeah. And I think another thing is just because it's the default type of mechanism, because I call it WWE brain.
I think it's a good,
and I think, and so it is kind of changing the perception. Like we've talked about how Tony wants the buy-in to not be thought of as a throwaway thing, because WWE has taught us that the pre-show doesn't matter. Right. And Tony is like, no, this is how I'm selling more tickets to the pay-per-view. Like, I want people to buy. So I'm putting these good matches on there. Just because they aren't on the main card doesn't mean they're not important. It doesn't mean I don't care about them. And so I think he's trying to like rewire our brains with that. And then also, like we see with like go home shows, the automatic assumption is, they lost, that means, or they won, that means they're going to lose on Sunday. Like that type of thing that he's trying to reframe. And it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, so, we have those, assumptions just from watching WWE for so long that we kind of don't even realize like that we think, and because I've seen so many people, and even now, we're in year 3 and people are still like, oh, they got buried. I'm like, no, but they've built enough goodwill, I think, that we can kind of give them the benefit of the doubt with the way they build things. And, like we look at the Hangman story and how they built that for 2 years so they can build these characters. So we can see kind of what they're doing with Yuta, like where they can take, maybe they spend the next year kind of building him, how they build him up, and maybe within the year he's better at, look at Hook, he doesn't speak at all. And he's got all this mystique and stuff around him, and he is immune to Danhausen's curses.
It would be easy to crisscross, because I had a moment where I was watching Hook. It would be easy to crisscross Hook with what Orange Cassidy's doing, except that it's not, because there's a different style of wrestling there and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I kind of think
Right.
they need to get that kid on TV more.
I
But
think
even though it could come off as the same, it still doesn't, because he's younger. It's kind of like an FU teenager almost sort of thing.
Yeah, and like, I mean, he's just now, like, I saw they were promoting it yesterday from Create a Pro, which is where he trains, and he's having his very first indie match in like May 14th, I think it was.
Nice.
And so that's just crazy to think that he's 6-0 in AEW and has never wrestled an independent match. Yeah, and so like I think the way they're handling him is smart. They've done a really good job building him up from just kind of coming out there and being Taz's son. And he has awesome hair and he likes potato chips.
Awesome hair.
And then, we've seen him get in the ring, and he's to be as young as he is with as little experience as he has, we've seen what he can do, and that it's only going to develop, in time. And they're really smart, because I've noticed the people that they've put him against have either been from Create a Pro, because like Bear Bronson, that's where he came. Because at first I was like, why are they putting Hook with Bear Bronson? I was like, oh, he's a Create a Pro student, so he knows that type of training, right? And they know that type of training. MJF came from there. Orange Cassidy, I think Orange Cassidy has wrestled some there, I want to say, but there's there's quite a few. Chris Statlander has wrestled for Create a Pro. Trying to think, there's quite a few other people, because that's if I'm not mistaken, that is Kurt Hawkins' wrestling school.
Oh, okay.
And it's in New York. And so he definitely has, so they're really smart with how they've handled him and with the training and things like that. So I think that AEW is showing there's various ways to build wrestlers. And now we've got Lee Moriarty, it seems to be in the storyline with Jay Lethal now. And he's been with Matt Sydal, who is a veteran. He's been here for 20 years. He's fantastic. He's really great at the mat-based stuff. He can do the high-flying stuff. So putting him with Lee, I think, was really smart. So they seem to be pairing these younger wrestlers with people who can help them in different ways. And so, and you've got, the Daniel Garcia and Chris Jericho thing is a little weird as far as their styles go, but I mean, it is Jericho, and he constantly reinvents himself. So I think, and even look at Matt Hardy, they put him with Private Party, and they, he kind of, took them under his wing, and has done stuff with them, and now we've built it into the storyline, where they've turned on him. And so the AEW is very good about utilizing the wrestlers that they have and putting them in positions to help the next generation and the younger wrestlers, because we talked about, there's the 4 pillars, but then we have the next set, which is Lee Moriarty and Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, and even maybe legit Layla Hirsch and stuff like that. So they've got this next set that they're already starting to work with, so that when the 4 pillars we have now, when they're running everything in 3 to 5 years, then you still
have backup.
Right, we've got this next set, and then you have Nick Wayne in the wings, who is 16 years old and wrestled. I didn't see the match last night because I didn't watch GCW, but he wrestled ACH last night, and I saw Buff Bagwell was live tweeting the show, and he was like, "I can't believe this kid's 16 years old," and he was like, "ACH is very good," and he, Nick may have lost the match, but he won because he was like, he's so good, and so you have so now we have whatever relationship the AEW has with Nick Wayne, so they even have the very next set that they're starting to work with and put on. So they're working with the current and the present, but then they're also, making sure that they're building up and that we get to see it, which I think is really cool.
That's my favorite part. That's the New Japan aspect that I actually do greatly enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, they did it first with Hangman Page, and they let it, we got to see him as this guy who was in Bullet Club. People knew who he was. And then we all got to go on this journey with him, and we got the big, and then he even left to be there for his child being born. And he left, and he said in his promo, at the hottest time of his career, he left. And we got, and so we got to, and, a lot of people, that probably resonates with a lot of people, to be able to see that. And so I think, so they've kind of already gotten people set up to be able to watch, younger wrestlers, or not even younger, but just the next set of wrestlers come in, and we can watch them grow. Cause we see that phenomenal growth with Yuta. We're starting to see it with whatever they're going to end up doing with Moriarty, because I think I don't know if he's just going to do Ring of Honor stuff, but putting him with somebody like Jay Lethal, who has now turned heel against Lee Moriarty, like that's huge for him. And so I think like it's fun the way that they're doing all of this. And so I think there are different ways. Like you said, there's people who have this certain way of watching wrestling because they've watched WWE for so long. And then there's people who watch New Japan or who watch Ring of Honor, who watch independent wrestling. And so there's different mindsets and seeing different ways wrestling evolves. And it doesn't have to just be one way.
And I think retraining that for people, I think there are actual wrestling fans out there who are used to it, but they also aren't like, don't change. They're actually willing.
Right.
I think you're always going to have the change is scary, don't change. We can't have change. You can't be different. But I do think that there's a contingent of people out there who are willing to at least entertain the possibility that, okay, if things are changing, I'm willing to sit here and check it out and get through it and listen.
And they're not beating you over the head with it either. Like, and they're not saying that if you watch it this way, you're wrong. Like, I think they're just opening how things are presented to you, and I think that is different because like, for those of us who have watched things outside of WWE, like we've watched New Japan and even just independent wrestling and things, that we see like, oh, you don't have to have, wrestling doesn't have to be laid out this way. You don't have to follow this exact formula every time to get it to work. Like there's various ways, there's styles of matches, there's types of wrestlers, there's characters, there's promos. They don't have to have promos. They don't have to be good at this or that. And still like, they don't have to necessarily be the complete package as far as like they're good in the ring and they have a character and they can cut promos. Like you can be just really good at wrestling and still be, and still be successful.
Definitely. So let's see. How much more do we need to cover on New Japan?
I guess one of the main things was strong is there's the well, we did see the rumor that we had heard from the tapings where
that's Factory. Right. We did get to see that. It's finally we got to see the actual confrontation between Nightmare Factory and
Carl Fredericks. And Carl was like, "No, I don't want this.
Let me see.
Wait. You
QT Marshall or Kenzuyori Shibata."
Right. Who just, I will say, QT just came in and just insulted the shit out of the man who's been training me. Let me see. I'm just going to abandon Shibata for that. It's like you don't even have Cody anymore. You don't even have Cody at the factory. Where am I going to go? Cody doesn't even want to be at the factory anymore.
You got to watch it with that stuff. Hilarious.
Yeah, but so that was fun to see. We did get to see Eddie Kingston again with Fred Rosser against Fred Yehi and Daniel Garcia. That was a lot of fun.
Really good match.
That was really good, and I love all of them. I had never seen
those people.
Yeah, and I'd never seen Andy Brown before. His match with Hikuleo, and he was really solid. Yes, I hope that hopefully we'll see him more. And then we had before we had the confrontation, we had Chris Sabin versus Jay White part 2, because they wrestled at Multiverse of Matches on Friday when there was 9,000 other shows going on. But I did see that match mainly because I wanted to see
that was one of the ones that you were like, this must be a match I want.
Yeah, it was. And because we've gotten Jay White versus Alex Shelley, and Alex Shelley beat him. And then so we got at Multiverse of Matches, we got Chris Sabin versus Jay White, and Chris Sabin beat him. So he lost to 2 of the people who had worked with him when he was a young lion, or not a young lion, but I guess he was still a young lion. He was on excursion. And he, they kind of, if I remember correctly, Alex Shelley said that Jay lived with him. Correct? I believe that in that promo where it was the promo was great because he called Jay by his shoot name, and I was like, oh no.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I was like, and Jay kind of, because he called his name is Jamie, and he called him
that's
that.
Right. Yes,
and
I do. Yep.
He called him Jamie, and Jay just kind of looked at him like, you didn't just call me by my government name on national TV. And it was so it was really great. And they've been doing a lot of stuff with Motor City Machine Guns and Bullet Club with Jay and Chris Bay, or the Jay and Bay Connection, I believe is what they're calling themselves.
Beyblade.
And so that match, so they fought again last night, and Chris Sabin versus Jay White was really good. Both matches were great. I retweeted a clip this morning of because Jay was just being an ass and was jumping on the apron and getting out and
Jay was
jumping on the
just
apron.
being Jay.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris Sabin was like,
extra Jay.
Yeah, and Chris Sabin's like, I don't have time for this. And he just like did a tope and he hit him so hard that the barricade went back and they nearly ended up in the crowd like they were Phoenix.
I was like, damn, dude.
I was like, Sabin doesn't do that. Like, so you must have really pissed him off to get him to be like where he's gonna do something like that.
Yeah, we call that move Detroit versus everybody.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely what that was. Yeah, he was not having it. But Jay White ended up actually he got his win back. So I'm hoping that means we get a rubber match at some point because they're 1-1 now. But then that led to so Jay, of course, was nobody can beat me. This is the era. This is the Switchblade era. Breathe with me. All this stuff. Nobody's on my level. And we get Fred. Wait. So the Hikuleo thing, was that? Did they show that at the beginning?
The Hikuleo thing, I think, happened at the beginning because they even.
I was thinking it happened at the end, but now then as I said that, I was like, wait, no, I remember now. So it seems like there's some things going on with Hikuleo and Jay White, which is understandable because Jay White kicked God out of the Bullet Club, and Hikuleo was not thrilled with that, understandably so. So it seems like we're getting that at some point. But then we had Fred Rosser come out, and wasn't it Fred Rosser? Is this where he came out? Or no, or am I confusing Fred Rosser? No, I'm confusing that. That was Fred Rosser and Tom. It was Tom Lawler.
Tom Lawler.
That's right, because he's the only. Yeah, so the Clark Connors match was not on this show. That was on the second one.
Oh, okay. Tom Lawler losing my mind.
That was last week, but Tom Lawler versus Clark Connors was a very good match. And so that got my shows mixed up there. So that's where we had Fred Rosser come out and challenge Tom Lawler because he is the only one who's ever pinned Tom Lawler in New Japan. And so he was like, he said, I'm not asking, I'm telling you I want a title shot. And Tom Lawler was like, oh no, you don't.
And I'm like, but I kind of do.
Yeah. So that match will be really good. But so it seems like we're also getting Hikuleo versus Jay White probably very soon. I don't think that's at Windy City Riot. I don't know,
but you never know. There's still a week until the show. Yeah. They could add things so I can't remember if it ended up getting added or not, but I haven't looked at the card this morning.
Yeah, so that seems to be coming. If it's not coming there, then I think maybe it's Strong will get it, which that should be a really good match. So they're doing a lot of good stuff. There's a lot happening with New Japan.
New Japan's feeling like pre-plague.
And because they're doing a lot with just New Japan in general, but then even the Strong brand. There's a lot of solid stuff going on over there, and there's a lot of really good talent getting exposure there, and they're building up. And like Finn Juice has been over there, and
we've got Best of Super Juniors coming up next month, and it's going to have real people in it. They announced G1 dates.
Right. And my friend said that there are 20 dates for G1 this year.
Yeah, it's a real G1 during the real time. And
right. And they're getting, it sounds like they're getting, visas are approved for, it doesn't sound like visas are approved for tourists. I think it's work. Work. So it seems like, and they were talking about in time for BOSJ. And one of the things I thought of, and I was like, do you know who I think would be really great in BOSJ? Is I would love to see Top Flight.
Oh,
in BOSJ. I don't know where that came from yesterday, but I was like, because I was thinking of if it was going to be AEW talent that they brought in, because it seems like they're
right, because it does sound like some of the AEW talent might end up there.
Right, especially now because AEW will start airing on World for the Japanese.
That's right. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah,
of that.
So that'll be for the Japanese fans only who are subscribed to World, but they're going to be full shows, so it's not just going to be because they've been showing like they'll add like a Jay White match or a Good Brothers match like where they've been on Impact or AEW, like they'll add that, but now they're going to be getting full Dynamite shows. Right. And I don't know if there's a date for that, but then that's making me think that AEW is probably going to send some people to BOSJ. And so I was like, oh, who would be cool for BOSJ? And Top Flight for some reason was the first people that I thought of. And I was like, oh, I would really like to see both Darius and Dante in BOSJ. I think that would be some really cool matches.
It'd be so good for some of these guys too.
Yeah,
it's just such a good experience.
Yeah, because I mean, it's basically to for them to have their own version of an excursion. Almost. Yeah, and so I think to have, especially some of these younger guys who may not have really been able to wrestle outside of the U.S. or maybe they've only done like the U.S. and Canada, so to get them in with like these Japanese style of wrestling, I think would be really cool.
And if you were like 22 when this thing started, you've just missed 2.5 years of indie bookings, essentially.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of experience to miss out on.
Yeah, it really is. And so thankfully AEW is really good about letting their talent wrestle in other places, and so it seems like they've got a really great relationship with New Japan now, which is funny because I brought it up the other day. Tony had said on a media call, somebody had asked what the relationship with New Japan was like, and he was saying that in the beginning he was pretty sure they hated him because he started up and like he took the Young Bucks and he took Cody and he took Kenny and
yeah, but there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff with people and
and so it sounds like Tony's worked really hard to show them like that he's not terrible and he's not going to screw them over, and that he wants to work with them, and he wants to be able to have talent go back and forth, which I know that's kind of what they do with Impact anyway, which is still good. So I think just the more that wrestlers have exposure to other types of wrestling, just the better they become. Obviously we've seen how well that works with New Japan. And so I think so why wouldn't you want your AEW wrestlers to go learn from, Tanahashi and Haramu and Shingo and
Okada.
Yeah, that Okada guy.
That guy.
Oh my God. I saw a tweet. New Japan retweeted it like 2 days ago, and it was the funniest thing. This guy was watching it on, because, it's airing on Access now after Impact. And so the guy was watching, and he said, who is this guy they call the Rainmaker? He's really good. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I was like, somebody has discovered Okada.
And you were like, oh my God, that man's life just became so much happier.
Yes. And we were talking about it with the Daily DDT Slack. I had posted it in there. Somebody said, don't show him the money clip.
Oh, no, okay, fair. That's okay.
I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, I don't hate the money clip as much.
I don't hate it either.
I don't hate it as much as other people do. I mean, I get it, but I don't, it doesn't bother me, but it made me laugh.
That's a good one, though. That's fair.
That is fair. So I was like, yay. I was like, see, putting New Japan on after Impact does make sense. And it is helpful because people are discovering it. People do watch Impact and then they're sticking around and watching New Japan.
My mother-in-law, because she's not a subscriber, explicitly said to me recently, I've been watching Impact because they put New Japan on after, because we used to watch Fridays when it was on Access together.
Right.
And she said the words, it's so nice to see New Japan back on TV.
Great. See? That's great.
Go with that.
That means people, because like you said, not everybody subscribes to World, and which I like that World does do the weekly free matches. I think that's really cool that they do that.
They got Impact and everything on there. I saw last night. It's good stuff.
So they've been doing that type of stuff. And then, we've got, and then I have Roku, but I don't really use the Roku channel, but I know Impact had been on there. I mean, not Impact, but New Japan had been, it's like the, what is it? Impact. I mean, not Impact. Why do I keep saying that? New Japan in 60 or something like that. And they do like a quick little recap of like what's been happening in New Japan. So like, I think, so it's smart the way that they're trying other ways to get out there and to get on American TV. So, that's a really cool thing. So, the more New Japan exposure for people, the better.
Yes.
As you can tell, we're very pro New Japan people here.
We are very pro New Japan. That's okay.
Yes. So I think that pretty much covers it, because we caught up in that. I haven't seen the New Japan show that happened last weekend. I'm hoping it'll be on World soon, and I can just catch up to it from that.
The good news is that we'll be back next Sunday talking about New Japan.
Yes, we will be. Yeah. So we will probably be watching Windy City over Battle of the Belts, or I will watch Battle of the Belts. Maybe not. I was gonna say I might watch it afterwards, but if that's in Chicago, then I guess it start. well, not technically an hour behind. I'll be an hour ahead, but it will probably.
They'll
What
both
is it?
watch somehow.
Yeah, but I'll get to Battle of the Belts. It may not be before we go on air, but I'll get to it. But I really want to make sure I'm catching up. New Japan's got a lot of cool stuff going on, so I definitely want to go back and watch Okada versus Zack Sabre Jr. I'll probably go ahead and watch the tag team match now to see.
It was not a bad show. I put the whole show on, which I haven't done in a while. I just and usually I'll just start it and let it run the background because I like it. But I actually ended up sitting down a few times where I was like, wow, I'm like watching the show. It felt really fun. It was nice. It felt like, you know, a G1 final or like Dontaku coming up is really exciting because I usually watch those like watch those.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it sounds like, and I'm super excited for BOSJ and G1, and now we're getting a step closer to having now, especially on Dynamite next week, we are getting a G1 match basically, and Samoa Joe versus Suzuki.
Yeah, right.
So because I said that I want Samoa Joe in the G1, so hopefully we'll get him. But even if we don't, we're at least getting a G1 match for free on TV from Suzuki. And Suzuki wrestled. I haven't, again, like I said, I did watch GCW last night, but Suzuki was in the main event against Blake Christian. I heard it was very good. I saw some gifs. I saw some gifs and clips of it. There was one where he just laid Blake Christian out in some chairs.
Nice.
Yeah. So Suzuki's still doing Suzuki things in the US, and so it's nice. I
get to see him on the 23rd beat the crap out of Tuchel Scorpio, so I'm good.
That match is gonna be.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's just a match that you didn't expect, but it's 2022, and we've learned
anything can happen.
Expect the unexpected, because these matches that we just never thought would happen, or you just look at like, oh yeah, that match makes sense, totally. Why wouldn't you have Suzuki versus Tuchel?
Why haven't we done this before?
Why not? I do want to say there's a match, and I meant to tweet this out during Joey Janela's spring break, and I forgot, and it's still in my drafts. But why has nobody done the Juice Juventud Guerrero versus Juice Robinson? Why has this match not happened? Why has Joey Janela not booked this match yet?
Hey, there's always another spring break at 3 in the morning to be had next year.
I'm gonna at him.
Do it.
Please make this happen. Make it happen, because you are the only one that can make this happen. Because you're the only one crazy enough to make the Juice versus Juice Robinson happen. Oh, and then there's Juicy Finale, so they could just add him in there, and he will probably just murder both of them.
Be the juiciest match ever.
It would be.
Gross.
The juiciest spring break of all time.
It sells itself. Come on.
And it's a spring break match. Like, you can't have that match anywhere else, I don't think.
The merch in my head.
Yeah.
I'm not even a designer.
Joey Janela, if you're somehow watching this, I'm about to at you. I already at him all the time about he wrestled. There's this thing called $5 wrestling.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So $5 wrestling happened in Charlotte a couple of years ago, and he wrestled Jeff Hart, which this match was fantastic. So Jeff Hart is billed from Canada, billed as being, I think he's related to the Harts is what he's billed as, and it's all kinds of fun things. And he calls Joey Janela Joy Gentel, and the big thing was that he had a personal bandana against him. So that's what Nikki and I say all the time. We're like a personal bandana. So the other day so every time he was like, guess the match, like guess who this opponent's gonna be, I'm always like, please be Jeff Hart. He's always like, this man's gonna block me on Twitter because I won't leave him alone about it. So now he's gonna get, besides Jeff Hart, I'm gonna tweet him all the time and be like, give me the juiciest match of all time. And give me the Juice versus Juice Robinson. And if you want to throw in Juicy Finale, we can add him too.
The juiciest spring break of all time.
But like, we have some merchant ideas for you and some slogans, and just we're your girls. Come hit up these two broads.
That's right.
And I was like, I think that's probably the note to end this show on.
I love it. I can't think of anything better. That's fantastic.
We just give out free ideas on this show sometimes.
Well, I mean, if you're going to watch, you get something out of the deal.
This is true.
So this is our tweeter right here. I love saying tweeter because it makes me sound old. And this
Hey,
is
we got a
us.
MySpace reference on this episode.
I know.
So.
See, we're winning. And this is exclusive to the YouTube Fight Game Media YouTube channel, which is right there. Or you can just search in the Googles because I did it again because everything is cool like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah.
I'll be doing it till forever. So
Mhm.
it won't be cool anymore by the time, and it'll still be whatever.
That's okay.
But, all right. So I think that's going to have to do it for us, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Mel.
I'm Sam.
And we out.
See you next week.